Hi, y'all, and welcome to the Blueprint Roundtable. I'm here with Chrissy and Emily, and today we have a topic that is about permission to pivot. How this topic came about is recently I've had quite a few people in my network reach out to me, whether they've gone through layoffs or they're just unhappy in their current role, and they're questioning, am I in the right career path? And if I want to make that switch, how do I even do that? So I think it's an interesting topic. I think a lot of people are currently asking themselves these questions. So I really wanted to kick it off and pass it over to Chrissy and hear your thoughts about making those moves to pivot your career.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the first thing is getting your mindset to not looking at, am I moving up? Am I moving down? But how am I pivoting? Right? Because that is a different way to look at things. And can you pivot incorrectly? Yes. But if you look at it from I'm pivoting and not making it something that's supposed to show that you're moving up the ladder or going down the ladder, that's where you're going to find the most success when you're being genuine with that and just, again, changing your mindset. And I think people just get too caught up or they don't know, like, I know sometimes in sales, like SDRs would be then like, but I don't want to be an AE, right? And it's like, or I don't want to go and be a team lead. What happens after I'm an account executive? Like, I don't want to go into management, and they don't have much more growth. And so I remember my first company I was at, I'd moved pretty high up, and I realized that if I kept going higher in leadership, it would be really hard for me. I wanted to be a VP of sales at the time. Now you cannot pay me money to be a VP of sales. But I wanted to be a VP of sales. That was my career goal, within the next like 5 or 6 years from that point. So I was like, I can't do that if I've never worked in outside sales, for, cold outbound and prospecting. And so I made the decision to go from a more senior leadership position to an account executive position and like a full, we didn't have SDRs or anything, right? And a lot of people were like, this is a mistake. Why would you do that? Well, it actually got me to a much higher level with the amazing career opportunities way faster than I would have ever had I stayed at that company and just made it about like, I'm so kept an ego or something and I'm so senior, I can't go down, right? Versus going, I need to build this part of my skill set. So I think the first thing is figuring out what do you want to do, and that can change. And what do you need to help build that skill set and move that ego to the side, especially if you're newer in your career. That's all you should be doing is building that skill set, right? Like, but even if you're, you've been around and you have a more established career, those things are valuable, right? And I think even with Blueprint, we were always like, we'll never do recruiting, like for when we first started, like we're never going to do that. And here we are. It's a full, very successful, great recruiting business, but you have to really look at like, what are the outcomes you want to achieve so you can pivot correctly. Emily, any thoughts on your side?
Huge advocate of a solid pivot. I think just as in quitting, there's a right and wrong way to do it. There's a right and wrong way to pivot. And I think you do have to have a level of bravery and courage to do it because it can be very scary. Done it a few times over, pivoted and then gone back and then back to where I was. And then the ultimate pivot kind of currently in the endeavor and passion that is Blueprint. So I would say for me, I think that I have a much larger range of skills that I would have had I gone a more traditional path. And I can speak to it well in an interview setting. And so I think the biggest thing is pivots make sense if you have, it becomes more complicated to speak to them when it's like pivots across short stints, like less than 18 months. Because it's like, were you really pivoting or did you just not have some options? But if you've shown that you've got substantial investment in that move that you made and you can speak to that, I think that hiring managers would be making a mistake to not consider that, even if that wasn't their own path. Because it's going to give that individual far more range than the folks that might have gone a traditional For sales, as the only example I can think of at this moment,
Yeah.
BDR to AE to senior AE, having someone that's had a peek into account management, they've had a peek into sales enablement maybe, or they've had a peek into sales ops. They understand. And I think if those individuals ultimately want to be in leadership, those are strong leadership candidates because they are going to be able to cross-functionally engage in a way that'll be potentially harder than it would be for someone that hasn't had that exposure to the different areas of the org. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to do it, commit to it. And the biggest thing is like have tenure in your pivot if you can. But if it's a pivot and it didn't work out, just practice being able to speak to that. Maybe incorporate that into a cover letter. People are going to notice on your resume. So be bold about having the conversation. I think that we're going to see it more and more. We're by no means the generation that invented the professional pivot as millennials, but we are the generation that we typically, compared to our predecessors, don't deal with BS as long and as much. Yeah. So you'll see more pivots in the workforce going forward, I think. That would be my guesstimation, but curious to hear your thoughts on the topic, Lizzie.
Yeah, I mean, I am an example of someone who made that pivot. I was an SDR and I knew I don't want to be an AE. Team lead was tossed around. I did not want to be a team lead and I pushed to be a recruiter. And it was scary to make that push. And I had conversations with people who I had no idea were even in my company at the time and just trying to sell them that, hey, I can be a recruiter. And for some reason, they took a chance on me. And I will say, if I never would have taken the courage or the strength to have those conversations, literally be a trial run as if this girl can even be a recruiter, I don't think I'd be where I am now. And it's okay to be scared to make that switch. I think when you're scared to make the switch, it shows also how much you want it. And it makes you work even harder to prove I made the right decision. And you want to prove to the people that hired you, your counterparts, even the new people that came on. It's like, I didn't have that traditional background, but this is what I did to get there. So yeah, I mean, permission to pivot all the way. Any other thoughts from y'all?
I don't know if y'all have ever read the book Range, but it's like literally a book not written for permission to pivot, but I mean, it supports it with statistics and how early specialization in any respective field does not lend to, by and large, massive shifts in development in said field. It actually comes from the individuals that have diverse backgrounds, that have a range of knowledge versus specialization in one topic. And so I think just from a data standpoint, it's a yes. From a personal experience standpoint, 100% a yes. And I think to your point, Lizzie, yeah, if you feel scared, push yourself. I think the biggest indicator for me every time I've decided to make a pivot was I felt stuck. I'm like, I feel stuck. Like I don't feel like I have options. And I did. And so that's kind of where I was kind of stuck in that fear. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, you do have options. You have more than you think. You're going to have to open some of those options up for yourself. But that's exciting. It gives you more autonomy and power over your destiny than I think sometimes we talk ourselves into thinking that we have. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it absolutely do it. I think we'll see more and more of it as the years go on. And rightfully so. I think it's really cool. Who knows where people end up? Who knows where we'll be at the end of our careers? It's exciting not to fully know.
And even though failure can happen or a wrong decision can happen, it's worth it to learn, because what is worse than that is not ever trying. Because here's the thing, if you pivot, if you actually care about looking at like, what do I want to do strategically that's going to make me grow and make me happy, right? And fulfilled. And it's not, I'll tell you a hint. It's not like the industry that you're going to be in. It's people that you work with. I've always said, like, I could shovel manure if I got paid well and worked with great people. Like, I don't care. And I'm growing, right? Probably not going to, develop the skills that I want to doing that. But, for example purposes, like, I genuinely mean that, right? So the people I work with that are helping me grow and vice versa, and having a great culture, and then again, increasing my skills, right? But when it comes to when you do a pivot successfully, it'll be kind of almost eye-opening in the sense of like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I almost missed out on this. If I had not done this, and that is a way bigger gut punch of realizing what you could have messed out on than if you fail. Because if you fail, you'll figure it out. You'll be fine. Like, we have to get used to getting out of this, like, you know, fight or flight mode. Like, if you fail at a job, it doesn't mean that your life is on the line, you know? And so we don't need to bring that anxiety to that level. It's like, everyone fails. Let's learn from that, and what, you know, regardless of what we need to change, and let's move on, and let's keep doing things to better ourselves. It will always work out. Always. Persistence pays.
Yep.
Yes. So.
Odds are, if you have the courage to pivot, you're going to have the grit to not fail. Like, you have what it takes to figure it out, you know?
Yes.
So.
100%.
Yes.
100% agree. Well, this was great. I'm very happy we all had this conversation. And to anyone watching this, if you're even debating making that change, you have permission to pivot. All right. Thanks, y'all.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks.
guys.